Snow kept falling over the White Valley as the old bus stopped near the frozen research base, and only 2 people stepped out from it, and they were an elderly couple named Tom and Mary, and their hands were shaking not just from the cold but from the long journey they had taken together. The research base looked silent and forgotten, with tall metal walls covered in ice and dark windows that had not seen light for years, and many people in the nearby town believed the place was empty and unsafe, but Tom and Mary had no other place to go. They had been left behind by their own family after years of giving everything they had, and when their small home was sold without their permission, they were forced to leave with only 2 bags and a few memories, and nowhere else would take them. The town shelter was full and the winter was harsh, so someone told them about the old research base where no one lived anymore, but where the cold could be kept out if they stayed inside, and that small hope was enough for them to walk all the way there. Tom pushed the heavy metal door, and it slowly opened with a loud sound as if the building was waking up after a long sleep, and inside there were long halls with frozen lights and dust on the floor and old machines that no longer moved. Mary held Tom's arm as they walked deeper into the building, and even though the place looked scary, it was warm compared to the outside, and that warmth made them feel safe for the first time in many days. They found a small room where old chairs and tables were still standing, and they decided to rest there for a while, but as they sat down, Tom noticed something strange on the far wall where a large stone door was hidden behind broken panels. The door was different from everything else in the building because it was made of thick stone and had a strange lock and small markings carved into it, and it did not look like it belonged in a research base at all. Mary felt uneasy when she saw it, but Tom felt curious because nothing else in the building looked that strong or that protected, and it made him wonder what could be hidden behind it. As the wind howled outside and snow hit the windows, the old couple had no idea that their simple search for shelter was about to change their lives in a way they could never imagine. And deep behind that sealed stone door, something had been waiting for someone to find it. The cold wind outside the research base kept pushing against the metal walls, but inside the old couple felt calm for the first time in many days, and Tom slowly stood up and walked toward the strange stone door that stood quietly behind broken panels, and Mary followed him with slow, careful steps, and both of them could feel that this door was not like anything else in the building. The stone surface was smooth and cold, and small carved symbols covered its edges, and they looked very old, like they had been made long before the research base was built, and Tom gently touched one of the carvings and felt a small button hidden inside it, and when he pressed it, a soft clicking sound echoed through the hallway. Mary held her breath as the sound slowly grew louder, and the stone door began to move inch by inch with a low, deep sound that felt like the ground itself was opening, and when the door finally slid open, a warm yellow light spilled out into the dark hallway. Inside was a small room made of stone and metal, and in the center of it stood a large metal table, and on top of it were many boxes stacked carefully one on another, and every box had numbers and stamps on it that looked official and important. Tom and Mary stepped inside slowly, and the door closed behind them by itself, and the warm air in the room made their tired bodies feel lighter and safer than they had felt in years, and Mary gently touched one of the boxes and felt that it was heavy and solid. Tom opened the first box, and both of them stared in shock because inside were thick bundles of clean paper notes neatly tied together, and each bundle was marked with a number, and Tom had seen money before but never in such large clean stacks. Mary sat down on a small chair in the corner because her legs could not hold her anymore, and she looked at Tom with wide eyes, and he whispered that this was more money than they could ever count, and it had to be worth millions. They opened another box and then another, and every one of them was filled with more of the same, and some boxes had metal bars that shined softly under the yellow light, and Tom realized that the room had been built to protect something very valuable. Mary felt scared and confused, and she asked why this much money would be hidden in such a lonely, frozen place, and Tom said that maybe someone long ago had hidden it here to keep it safe and then never came back. They sat quietly for a long time, just staring at the boxes and thinking about their own lives and how they had been pushed aside by their family and left with nothing, and now suddenly they were sitting in a room filled with more wealth than they had ever dreamed of. Mary said that this felt like a test, and Tom agreed because taking something that did not belong to them felt heavy in his heart, but at the same time they had been treated so unfairly and had nothing left, and this room felt like a chance to finally live with dignity again. They decided to not touch anything for now and just rest and think, and Tom carefully closed the boxes again, and both of them moved to a small corner of the room where there was a clean bench, and they sat there holding hands. The warm air made Mary fall asleep, and Tom watched her quietly and thought about how much she had suffered in the last few years and how she had still smiled and supported him even when everything was taken away. After some time, Mary woke up and said that she had a dream where they were living in a small peaceful home near a sunny field, and Tom smiled because he had imagined the same thing, and for the first time in a long time hope felt real. They slowly started to plan what they would do if they could use the money in a careful, honest way, and they talked about helping others who were also left behind and about finally getting proper care and a warm place to live. As they spoke, the lights in the room suddenly flickered and a soft sound came from one of the walls, and Tom stood up and saw that a small screen had turned on and showed numbers and lines like the system was waking up after many years. A recorded voice played through the room, and it spoke in a calm, slow tone and said that the room was a secure vault created to store a large emergency fund, and that only someone who entered by opening the stone door would activate the system. The voice said that the money had been left untouched for a very long time, and that the last person who had access to it never returned, and that now the vault was unlocked for whoever found it first. Mary felt both excited and nervous, and she asked Tom if this meant the money was now theirs, and Tom said that it seemed like no one else had come for it in all these years and that the system had given them access. They looked at each other, and both of them felt that this moment was bigger than anything that had happened in their lives before, and that their future was now standing in front of them in these simple metal boxes. But Tom also felt a strange worry in his chest, because he knew that something this valuable would never stay hidden forever, and if someone else found out about this place they might come looking for it. The sound of wind outside the base grew stronger, and the walls made deep noises as if the storm was becoming worse, and Tom knew that they had to be careful and smart from now on. Mary said that no matter what happened they would face it together just like they had always done, and Tom nodded and held her hand tightly, because for the first time in many years they felt like they were not alone anymore. And deep inside the frozen base, the sealed stone room had finally given up its secret to two people who had nothing left to lose and everything to hope for. The yellow light inside the sealed stone room stayed steady while the storm outside the frozen research base kept growing stronger, and Tom and Mary sat quietly for a long time thinking about everything that had happened since they walked through the old metal door, and both of them felt that their lives had been turned upside down in only a few hours. Tom slowly stood up again and walked back to the metal table where the boxes were stacked, and he opened one more box just to make sure that what they had seen was real and not a dream, and once again he saw the thick bundles of clean notes and smooth shining bars that reflected the warm light, and he took a deep breath because the truth was too big to ignore. Mary joined him and placed her hand gently on the side of the box, and she whispered that they had never wanted anything big in life and that all they had ever wished for was peace and safety, and now this room was offering them something they had never even imagined. Tom nodded and said that they could use this gift wisely and not let it change who they were, and that they could finally have a small warm home and good care for their health, and also help others who were left alone just like they had been. They talked about the town nearby and how many people there struggled through the cold winters, and how the shelter was always full, and how many elders were left without support, and Mary said that maybe this was why they had been guided to this place. As they spoke, the small screen on the wall lit up again and new lines of numbers appeared, and a soft tone filled the room, and Tom realized that the system was still active and watching their movements and keeping track of the vault. A new message appeared on the screen, and it said that the vault would remain open for a limited time, and that once the door closed again it would seal itself for many years, and Mary felt her heart beat faster because that meant they had to decide what to do very soon. Tom said that they could not carry everything with them and that moving too much at once would draw attention, so they needed a plan, and Mary agreed and said that they should only take what they needed to start a new life and leave the rest safe in the room. They looked around and found some old bags and boxes in the corner of the room, and slowly they began to fill them with a small part of the notes and bars, and even this small part was more than enough to change their lives. As they worked, Tom kept listening to the sounds outside the stone walls, and the storm was loud and wild, but he also heard something else that made him pause, and it sounded like footsteps far away in the hallway. Mary noticed his sudden stillness and asked what was wrong, and Tom said that he thought he heard someone else in the base, and both of them froze in place and listened carefully. The footsteps came again, slow and careful, like someone was trying not to be heard, and Mary felt fear rise in her chest because they had believed they were alone, and now that belief was breaking. Tom quickly closed the boxes and turned off the small light on the table, and both of them moved quietly toward the stone door and tried to listen through it, and the footsteps were closer now. Mary whispered that maybe someone from the town had also found the base to escape the cold, and Tom said that they could not take any chances and they should stay quiet and hidden until they knew for sure. The stone room stayed silent as the footsteps stopped just outside the door, and for a moment there was no sound at all, and then a soft voice called out asking if anyone was inside the base. The voice sounded tired and calm and not angry, and Tom slowly opened the stone door just a little and saw a young woman standing in the hallway with a small bag and a light in her hand, and she looked cold and weak. Mary stepped forward and asked who she was, and the woman said her name was Lena and that she had been traveling through the snow after losing her home in the nearby town and had found the base by chance just like they had. Tom and Mary looked at each other and felt both relief and worry, and Mary gently invited Lena inside the stone room because the warmth could help her, and Lena thanked them and stepped in slowly. Lena looked around at the stone walls and the metal table and the closed boxes, and she said that she had not expected to find anyone else there and that she was just looking for a safe place to rest. Tom said that they were doing the same and that they were glad she had found shelter too, and for a few minutes the three of them just sat together quietly feeling the warmth and listening to the storm. Lena shared that she had been caring for her own elder relatives but had lost everything when the town had changed and she had been forced to leave, and Mary felt a deep connection to her story because it sounded so much like their own. But Tom could not stop thinking about the vault and the boxes, and he worried that Lena might become curious and discover what they had found and that this could bring trouble. Mary noticed his worry and gently touched his arm and whispered that they had to trust their hearts and that not everyone who walked into their lives was there to harm them. Lena looked tired and soon fell asleep on one of the benches, and Tom and Mary sat quietly watching her and wondering what this meeting meant. Tom said that maybe this was another test and that if they truly wanted to use the gift they had found in a good way they would need to share and help others, not just think of themselves. Mary agreed and said that they could help Lena start over too and that kindness should come before fear, and Tom felt her words calm his heart. The storm outside slowly began to fade and the frozen base grew quiet again, and the yellow light in the stone room made everything feel warm and safe. As the night passed, Tom and Mary knew that their future was changing, not just because of the hidden wealth but because of the choices they were making and the people they were letting into their lives. And deep in the sealed stone room the story of their second chance was only beginning. The morning light slowly reached the frozen research base, and the heavy storm that had filled the night with loud sounds had finally faded, and inside the sealed stone room Tom and Mary woke up feeling calm and rested for the first time in many weeks, and Lena was still sleeping quietly on the bench beside them. The warm yellow light from the small lamps filled the room with a peaceful glow, and Tom gently stood up and looked around, and everything felt real and steady and not like a dream, and the boxes on the metal table were still there holding the future they had found by chance. Mary walked to the stone door and slowly opened it, and cold fresh air from the outside hallway flowed in, and she smiled because the storm had cleared and a new quiet day had arrived. Lena soon woke up and thanked Tom and Mary for letting her rest in the warm room, and she shared that she felt stronger now and ready to face whatever came next, and Mary told her that no one should have to face the world alone. Tom felt that this was the right moment to tell Lena the truth about what they had found, because keeping such a big secret did not feel honest, and he believed that trust would guide them better than fear. He gently explained that behind these stone walls was a hidden vault filled with a great amount of wealth that had been left untouched for many years, and that it had now been unlocked by chance, and Lena listened in quiet surprise. Lena did not rush toward the boxes or show any signs of greed, and instead she looked at Tom and Mary with deep respect and said that life had taught her that true value was not only in things but in how people treated each other. Mary felt her eyes grow wet with emotion because those words touched her heart, and Tom felt even more sure that letting Lena into their story had been the right choice. They talked together about what they could do with the wealth and how they could use it to bring peace not only to themselves but to others who had been forgotten and left behind. Tom said that the money could be used to create a small center in the nearby town where elders and families could find warm shelter and support during the harsh winters, and Mary added that they could also help those who needed care and kindness. Lena offered to help them manage and organize everything because she had some experience working with community projects before her own life was turned upside down, and Tom and Mary were grateful for her help. They made a simple plan to take only a small part of the wealth from the vault and leave the rest safe behind the sealed stone walls so that it would not attract attention or cause trouble. Together they carefully packed a few bags with the needed amount and made sure everything was done quietly and with care, and when they finished Tom closed the boxes again and placed them back exactly as they had been. The vault system showed that the room would soon return to its sealed state, and they felt that this was a sign that their time there was coming to an end and that it was time to step into the new path that had opened for them. Tom and Mary held hands as they walked out of the stone room with Lena by their side, and the door slowly closed behind them with a soft deep sound, and the yellow light faded, but the warmth they had gained stayed in their hearts. They left the research base and stepped into the bright cold morning, and the sky was clear and blue and the snow sparkled under the sunlight, and for the first time in a long time the future did not feel dark or uncertain. The town in the distance looked small but full of life and hope, and they walked toward it together carrying not just bags but new dreams and new purpose. When they arrived, people were surprised to see them return from the frozen base, and some asked where they had been, and Tom simply said that they had found shelter and a new chance to start again. Soon they quietly rented a small warm home and began to set up the plans they had spoken about, and Lena helped connect them with kind people in the town who wanted to be part of something good. Over time, a small center was created where elders and families could come for warmth and support, and everyone who walked through its doors felt safe and welcomed. Tom and Mary worked there every day and shared smiles and stories, and Mary often said that kindness was the true treasure they had found. Lena became like a daughter to them, and together they formed a small family built not by blood but by care and respect. No one ever knew about the hidden vault deep inside the frozen base, and it remained sealed and quiet, protecting the rest of the wealth that had started something beautiful. Tom and Mary lived their remaining years in peace and comfort, surrounded by people who truly cared for them, and their story became a quiet example of how hope can appear even in the coldest places. And so the elderly couple who had once been left behind found not only a future but a purpose, and their journey through the frozen research base became the beginning of a new warm chapter in their lives.